If you're thinking about downsizing into a condo, you're in the right place. Whether you're an empty nester, just looking to simplify, or looking for a lower maintenance lifestyle, moving from a larger home to a condo can be a big transition. Today I'm sharing what you need to know before making that move, including key differences, pros and cons, and some tips to help make downsizing hopefully a little bit easier. My name is Joe Luciano. I'm a local realtor here in Massachusetts, and I constantly help people navigate the process of downsizing, both selling their home and then buying a smaller condo. If you're thinking about making the switch, stick around. This video will hopefully help save some time, some money, and help you avoid some of the common pitfalls. Downsizing to a condo can be a great option for many homeowners, especially here in Massachusetts when maintenance becomes just too much to keep up with. Here are a few reasons why people will make the move, a few of the pros to downsizing into a condo. Firstly, there's less maintenance. There's no more mowing the lawn, there's no more shoveling the driveway or taking care of the exterior of the home. Now, this may be sort of obvious with downsizing, but with downsizing you have a smaller space, which means it's easier to manage. You have less rooms collecting dust, maybe you have less stuff to worry about. It just becomes a much easier place to take care of on the inside. Now, if you're buying a condo that's inside of a complex, there may be more of a community and social aspect too, which can be a huge pro for many people. Many condo communities have common areas, planned activities, and a built-in neighborhood feel. And lastly, this is probably the largest reason that most people are looking to downsize. It's the financial benefit. Oftentimes when you're selling a larger home, you can hopefully free up a lot of equity, especially if you've lived in this home for 20, 30 years. It might even be entirely paid off. And then if you're buying a condo, the idea is generally that you can buy something that's cheaper than what you just sold, freeing up equity, freeing up some cash, maybe you can have some fun with it. And with this too, buying a cheaper property also comes cheaper property tax. So theoretically, you could sell your house, buy a condo, pay cash for it, not have a mortgage, and then you have a lower tax bill, which is really helpful if you're on a fixed income like Social Security or your 401k. Now, all of this sounds great, and it's what oftentimes is what makes people think that this is a great idea, but here are a few things you should consider before buying a condo or making that switch. While condos come with plenty of perks, there are a few things you should watch out for, and they can really catch a lot of people coming from a single family home off guard. First and most importantly, there's HOA fees and there are rules and regulations. This is probably the biggest difference coming from a home to a condo. Condo fees cover maintenance and management, but they can be expensive, plus there are rules. Some condos will restrict pets, some of them will have rental restrictions, so if you ever wanted to rent it out, you may or may not be able to do that. There's other restrictions involved too. Sometimes with parking a car in your own driveway can be difficult. And then also there's restrictions too on what you can do outside. So maybe you can't have a bird feeder in your backyard. Sometimes you have to be careful with holiday decorations outside. That's going to depend community to community, and it's super important to review the bylaws before you purchase. Another big one too, when you are paying attention to the rules and regulations, is if you have a dog, make sure you check the pet policy. A lot of condo communities will have pet restrictions. So generally speaking, they may have restrictions on certain breeds. They may have weight restrictions. So any dog over 25 pounds, for instance, may not be allowed. And then again, it may be with HOA approval. So if you have a dog, without sacrificing the dog, you should probably make sure that the condo that you're looking at allows it. With a condo, there's also less privacy and space. Shared walls may mean that you can hear your neighbors next door. And then also there's less space, so you may only have a patio or a balcony that's to yourself, as the rest of it will be a shared space. Which that could be exactly what you're looking for, but again, it's just something to consider when you're coming from a house. Now, right along with that kind of brings me to the fact that there's limited outdoor space, which may mean it's harder for you to garden if that's something you're really into. If you love gardening, a condo may not be the right fit. Most condos don't have private yards. They pretty much only will have a balcony or a patio. And even there, it might be restricted on what you can actually do there in terms of planting, because it will only take one neighbor to complain. And that's a really nice transition into the next downside with condos. You can't pick your neighbors. And this is true with a single family home neighborhood as well, a more suburban neighborhood. It's just amplified probably 100x because you have everyone living so tightly together. And generally speaking, you have more people, which means you have a higher chance of having one bad apple, right? Something else that kind of goes along with having less space is that storage can be limited. And this can be a problem more so if you have a lot of seasonal decor or you have a lot of holiday decorations. It depends really on the type of condo, but if you're buying a townhouse, you might have a basement. They might have finished it off, which finished basement means more living space, but it also means almost no storage. If you're buying a condo in a building, you might be lucky just to have a storage locker. So of course, check that beforehand, because you're definitely gonna have less space than you will in a single family home. Now, something else with a condo that you should probably check beforehand is you probably won't have a space for a workshop or tools if that's something you're into. I know me personally, I like to woodwork, so that would be kind of a huge deal breaker for me. Also with condo communities, there may be parking restrictions. Make sure you check how many parking spaces come with it. A lot of the time you may see only one deeded parking space or one garage space. So if you have 2 cars, that could be an issue. And then there also may be limited guest parking, which if you have guests over frequently, that could also be an issue for you. And finally, this is probably the big scary one for condos that I don't know if everyone fully understands, but sometimes buying in a condo, you can get hit with a special assessment. And this is kind of the same thing that can happen with a single family house, except it's just amplified and you're maybe not expecting it because you were hoping for a more controlled, manageable experience. So with a special assessment, what it really is something large needs to happen or needs to be fixed on the condo community. And so in order to cover this, what will happen is all of the unit owners will get hit with this one-time bill, and it will help fund this overall project. So similarly with your house, if you needed to fix the roof because it started leaking, you might be out $30,000 to $50,000 to fix the roof. Now imagine that for 30 to 50 townhouses. If all of a sudden it was decided that we need new roofs, now you're stuck paying for new roofs along with all the other residents. So with a condo, you may be paying a reasonable HOA fee. Maybe it's like $400 a month and you're getting a good value for that. You're getting maintenance, you're getting lawn care, maybe you have access to a pool. You know, you're getting decent value, but be ready for the chance that there could be this surprise bill. I've even heard of a single case where there was a condo community that they decided that they needed siding, they needed roofs, they needed windows, they needed new flashing and new decks. It ended up coming out to be $200,000 per unit. Now, that's crazy. Like, you have to almost just let that sit in. $200,000 per unit. Granted, it was in Gloucester, and these condos were probably going for around $800,000 to $1 million. But if you own a paid off condo, right? If you're older, let's say you're 70, 75 years old, and you own a condo that's fully paid off, you paid cash for it, and then you get hit with this bill that's $200,000, you can finance it, sure, but that comes out, if you finance that over 30 years, I think at the time it was like $2,400 a month on top of like if you had a mortgage. So, you know, like things can happen, and it's really important to basically assess the condo before you buy it. You want to look at all of the common areas. So you may want to look at the roof, you may want to look at the siding. Even though you're not technically responsible for it, if something bad happens, you will be responsible for it in some extent. All right, so those are pretty much all of the major downfalls or potential downsides to owning a condo. And they may or may not be a deal breaker for you. It really depends on your unique situation. I always like to tell people worst case scenario type of things because I don't want any unexpected surprises, you know, or any unwelcome surprises. I would hate to represent someone that's buying a condo and then they get surprised with something that they weren't expecting. I'd much rather you be aware of the potential issues and the potential downsides, and then things be better than expected, right? I think that's just a more sensible way to approach this. All right, so if you've decided that a condo is the right move for you, here are a few different things you can do to help make that transition easier. Declutter your home before you sell. This means either getting rid of things you don't use, you can gift them, sell them, throw them in the trash. Go room by room in your house and get rid of everything that you don't need or you don't use. And this will also help you when you go to move into a smaller space, as it's less things to move, right? It's much easier that way. Not to mention, this will obviously help when you have to sell your house. It's much easier to stage and show a home when there's not a ton of stuff in there. And this particularly applies if you've lived in the same house for 20, 30 years. I think oftentimes what happens is we get so used to what we have that you don't even realize that you have something until you start going through it. So before you downsize, before you even start looking, I think it's a good idea to go through everything you have and do a really thorough cleanup. Now with that, you should also measure and plan for your new space. So when you're looking at condos, you should be taking measurements. figure out if your furniture is gonna fit, because a lot of the times when you're coming from a larger colonial home that's either 3,000, 4,000 square feet, and you're going down to a condo that's 2,000 square feet, your room dimensions may be smaller. You may be used to having really large furniture. So you should really measure that beforehand. Otherwise, the condo is going to feel much smaller than it actually is, just because your furniture is taking up so much of the room. Number 3 is you should understand the HOA fee and rules. So you should know exactly what you're paying for. You should know how much it's going to cost you, and then you should know the rules and regulations for that particular condo community. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? So if you have a dog or you have pets, make sure you read the pet amendment. If you have 2 cars, make sure if there's only 1 car garage, you're allowed to park in the driveway. You should really go through it, and if you have an attorney, you should always send it to them, see what they see. It's always better to have more eyes looking at it. And then a big one, you should strategize how to buy and sell at the same time, or at least how you're gonna do it in whatever way makes sense for you. This can generally be the hardest part, and I think it's what catches most people up. But you generally have 3 main strategies when it comes to buying and selling at the same time. The first strategy, you can buy first and then sell later. This is probably the most expensive strategy, but it's also the easiest because it gives you time to transition, right? You have time to move everything, but with that, you have to be able to financially carry both homes at the same time. So that's gonna really vary based on your finance, but that's definitely the easiest option. The second option that you have is you can sell first, rent a home, and then buy. And what this does is it allows you to free up your equity first and then be a more qualified buyer. And this is really favorable, I think, when the market's competitive, because it's really hard to get an offer accepted with a home sale contingency, which that brings us right to our third option, which is buying with a home sale contingency. So if you're buying a condo, right, with a home sale contingency, what you're essentially doing is you're submitting an offer with it being pending on whether or not you can sell your home. Now, this is great for that one-time transition. You only have to move once versus twice, but in a competitive market, it's very, very difficult a lot of the time to get an offer accepted with a home sale contingency. So in a market like we're experiencing right now, unless a property's been listed for 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's pretty difficult to get an offer accepted like that. So, but it does give you that insurance where if your home doesn't sell, yes, you could back out and you're not into this for, $40,000, $50,000, whatever your moving cost would be. Then my 5th and final tip before downsizing is work with an agent that's experienced with condos and this process overall. Not all condos are the same. Some may have financing restrictions, deed restrictions, resale issues, or maybe they have something sort of interesting where it's a co-op versus a condo. That's where working with someone that's experienced in this can be really, really helpful. An experienced agent like myself can help you avoid those pitfalls. Hopefully this video made you feel more confident, at least more knowledgeable about the process of downsizing. If you're thinking about making the switch or making that move, I'd love to help you find the right space or determine what the right option is for you. I'll leave my contact info in the description below and a link to my website where you can view all of the different condos and condo communities. Drop a comment below with your biggest concern around downsizing and I'll be sure to answer it. But yeah, until next time, be sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.